Welcome to AfterBuzz TV's Mystery Science Theater 3000 After Show. That's how excited I am. I can't even say the name of the show. You join us now to celebrate having the first brand new episode in almost 2 decades. Yes, for the first time in 18 years, we've got Movie Sign.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Here's our new theme song for the new version of the show. Welcome to the Mystery Science Theater 3000 After Show. I said it right this time. Yeah. Stranded here on the satellite of Buzz. Yes, I'm very proud of that. I'm Christian Bladt on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Marooned with me, Andrew Mena at Andrew Mena.
That's me, Andrew Mena. You can find me there on the social media at Andrew Mena.
Is it all social media?
Yeah, it's the Twitter, definitely. I do the Andrew Mena on Instagram if you like to look at the Instagrams.
Well, you know, I think people do like the Instagram because they like graphic representation of things.
It is.
Also,
it's nice.
Very important, we, the show, have our own Twitter at MST3KABTV. That's a lot of letters, but if you think about it, it's Mystery Science Theater 3000, MST3K, at ABTV, AfterBuzz TV. So MST3KABTV. Tweet us there before, after, during any and every episode.
Just all the time.
Yeah. And keep in mind, as we go along through this episode, we're only going to talk about the first episode of the reboot, episode 1101, the 198th episode of the show. The title of which we'll reveal once we bring down the spoiler curtain. But for now, we'll get to know you all a little bit, all you lovely guys and girls. Andrew and I have known each other for a very long time, exactly 24 hours.
Exactly one day.
And we hung out at Starbucks with our friend Tim Allen. We won't say which one so people don't start,
of course,
they don't show up with their DVD of Galaxy Quest looking for signatures.
I mean, that's what I would have done. Would I have known he would have been there?
Every time I go back to that Starbucks, Galaxy Quest is going to be in the trunk.
Stick it in my pocket.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, smart.
So, Andrew, tell people a little bit about yourself, but also how you discovered Mystery Science Theater 3000, the original version of the show.
I'm Andrew Mena. I'm a comedian person. Also, I like to do AfterBuzz TV shows and talk about TV shows because they're lovely. I found Mystery Science Theater 3000 probably the last 5 years, I would say. My stepdad really likes it, and he likes a lot of campy, fun things, and we kind of bonded over that and kind of Svengoolie and kind of other campy things. But I watched a lot of his tapes, and he has a lot of the old original tapes.
Yeah, I have in my garage, I have boxes and boxes of tapes.
Yeah.
And I know that the shows are digitized, but there was a point where it was really hard to get certain episodes, so I'm always afraid. I'm like, no, I have to hang on to my VHS of episode 101, The Crawling Eye, the first one, because maybe I might never be able to find it again. So he also had a lot of VHS cassettes.
Crawling Eye, I think, is my favorite, actually.
It's pretty great.
It's kind of the best one.
Yeah, it also was their least favorite because it was the first one and they didn't have some of the gimmicks worked out. But that's the other thing. Do you have an overall favorite? Is it The Crawling Eye?
I mean, to be honest, this episode was a lot of fun.
This was amazing.
This was so good.
Yeah.
I was delighted, so delighted, and we'll talk about it a lot.
It was amazing too because this would be the first ever episode of the show that's in high def.
Yeah,
and they had an amazing print of a terrible movie.
Yeah,
but you know what? Even bad movies deserve to have good prints.
Exactly. Glossy failure.
So as for myself, I'm a little bit older than some people here at AfterBuzz.
No.
When they announced the premiere date for Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Return, as it's officially titled, I was on our mutual friend Zach Wilson's show, Sci-Fi Weekly, and I mentioned, I feel like I need to cover this show because I've been a fan longer than a lot of AfterBuzzers have been alive. Now, to prove that, I'm going to talk a little bit about my history with the show, and I have visual proof.
My God,
how long I've been a fan. I have my MST3000 Info Club kit. Cambot, if you could show the first picture, which that's the return address, lovely P.O. Box in Hopkins, Minnesota, that all the old episodes have that address in there, so I don't know if you can still send mail there, but I probably wouldn't. And then if you can take a look at the postmark on it, that's picture number 2, Cambot, if you don't mind. Oh my God, November 12th, 1991.
Wow.
So that is what I'm holding right here.
That is pre-Lion King.
Wow, that's it's not pre-Little Mermaid, but it's pre-Lion King, pre-Aladdin.
Yep.
Pre Pre a lot of things. Yeah. I mean, I think we only had one Ninja Turtle movie at that point. And we have so many now.
How did you manage?
You know what? It was difficult. I wouldn't want you to have to live through it.
I'm glad I don't have to.
So I've had this Info Club kit for 26 years almost. And I think we mutually both know there are AfterBuzzers who are 22, 23. And so I'm not bragging. I'm actually a little sad to be reminded of how long I've had things like this. But let's move on to picture number 3, Cambot, because then you're going to see, and that's a mailing address that's no longer active. My parents don't live at that house anymore. They had rural delivery in the town I grew up in. So I felt okay leaving the address on there. Yeah. And I'm fan club number 7193. Now, people who are hardcore fans of the show would always
memorized,
of course. I actually have it tattooed, but I can't show you where it is.
Well, I mean, not on this show.
Yeah, it's on my team.
It's a Howard Stern sort
of
thing.
Exactly. If Howard wants to see it, I will show him. So, and a lot of times when there would be posts in the sort of fledgling days of the internet, this was a show that people loved talking about and trading tapes, like it used to say at the end of the episode, keep circulating the tapes. People would put their Info Club number, and it was a badge of honor. Mine's like 7193, which there's some much higher. But if people had them in like triple digits, they're like, oh, I guess that's all right. But I'm a hardcore. Yeah. But so I have a number, and Cambot, let's go to picture number 4. So that is my official fan club membership card, but I didn't fill it out.
Jealous.
I didn't fill it out because I felt like I wanted to save it and have it in mint condition.
Pristine.
Anybody who's a comic collector, you know the importance of mint condition. So I never filled it out. And I thought about signing it just before the show. And I'm like, look, if I went 26 years without signing it,
why do it now?
That would be silly. Yeah. But love that graphic. I think the crow looks very much like Kermit there because just the way his eyes are drawn.
I do see it.
And I think there's just 2 more pictures in here. I just thought I'd share these. Look at that. Hey. That's a very handsome original cast photo.
It is.
Signed. It's a little hard to tell, but it's signed by Tom Servo, Gypsy, and Crow. I don't know that Joel signed. I think Joel just wrote Joel. And finally, the final picture, the final thing I'll show from the Info Club. Look at that very handsome photo of Dr. Forrester and Frank before he went by TV's Frank. So what I'm trying to say to Andrew and all of you watching, I'm very old, but I love this show.
In so many words.
And so many words. And having this show back is very exciting because I continued to be a fan of the show through the different permutations. You know, some of the mad scientists switched out. We had a new host in Mike Nelson, who I think was also fantastic. I like them both. You know, it's very hard because people need to pick, well, you can only like David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. You can only like Captain Kirk or Jean-Luc Picard.
People like to have allegiances.
But I don't know. I like everybody. What's wrong with that?
It's totally, you know what? It's fine. Christian?
Yes.
It's fine.
Okay.
We're going to be okay.
We're going to be okay, and you're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're in the chat while we're doing this live on YouTube, please tell us your thoughts about the episode. If we could take a look at that. Cambot will bring it up. Cambot does everything.
Cambot does such wonderful things.
Which we really appreciate. So anyway, let's talk about the new show. We still won't go into the movie, but now is the point.
Okay.
If we had a giant curtain, it would drop down. And this is the spoiler-filled zone.
Yes.
The first few minutes,
You've entered it.
Spoiler-free.
Yeah.
But now... Well, although I did give away how old I am. That was bad.
That was kind of the
And Jillian4848 says she's jealous. She didn't even know that they had a club. Well, the old episodes all had...
Me too.
Yeah, well, they all had you could send away for it. And here's the best part about it. You didn't have to pay. It was free.
Aww.
This is now, if you have a club of some kind, it's probably like $50 a year. But anyway, and Jillian loves this show. I'm going to assume that she means Mystery Science Theater 3000, but I think she also means she loves our show.
Yeah, I hope so.
For the whole 10 minutes it's been on, she's been a fan.
We've had some ups and downs, but I like to think there've been more ups than downs so far.
Yeah, there was that moment at the beginning of the show when I said Mystery Science Theater 3000 wrong.
I didn't think you were going to bring it back.
By the way, that's going to go on the gag reel that we have at the end of the season.
Exactly.
It's going to go right on there.
We'll share it with you.
All right, so the show starts. We meet Jonah Heston. Which is a lovely last name.
Just jamming.
Yeah. Heston, I feel like, no one told me this. I feel like it's an homage to Charlton Heston, Planet of the Apes, just like Joel Robinson and Robinson Crusoe. Now, Mike Nelson's name was Mike Nelson. I feel like that's like a Tony Danza thing. Like Mike Nelson, he just was like, that's my name. You can't call me anything else.
Yeah.
Because if you think of Tony Danza, every show he was ever on, his character name was Tony. Because first of all, he looks like a Tony.
He does.
But second of all, he probably couldn't answer to it. In any case,
Good point.
we get to meet Jonah Heston, who is, of course, played by Jonah Ray. And talk a little bit about what's he doing when we meet him.
He's just jamming. Of
course,
he's jamming
in space.
out. In space.
Who wouldn't want to jam out in space?
He's had a successful mission, and he is celebrating, just throwing it down, laying down some beats. It's pretty sweet.
It's sweet. And, obviously he seems like a good guy because he hears a distress signal. And, some of us would be like, oh, man, I can't. I'm feeling it right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into my drum solo. Nope.
He goes to
So,
hell.
unfortunately for him, he answers the distress call from TV's son of TV's Frank, who, as we learn, his name is actually Max.
Oh, amazing.
But I'm going to assume he has to be the son of TV's Frank. Otherwise, he
Makes
wouldn't
sense.
be TV's son of TV's Frank.
Right.
And Felicia Day, who is a forester. But I don't know that I caught her first name. Did you? Is she Felicia Forrester? Or did I just do that because that's her real name?
I think you might just be doing that.
Yeah.
But now I don't.
Because her father's name would be Clayton Forrester. That was the.
She did say she was the great grand.
Yeah,
daughter.
and Pearl Forrester was his mother, who there was a season with Clayton and Pearl, and then Pearl basically was the entire run of the Sci-Fi version of the show.
Right.
So I'm gonna do some homework, find out what her character name is.
Gonna have some homework to do. Who is Felicia?
So those are the 3 people that we've met so far in the show, and I have to say I loved them all.
Yeah. I will also say that I really loved the moment in the beginning where the 2 mission control operators both kind of swoon over Jonah Ray.
Yeah, well,
independently.
I mean, how could you not?
How could you not?
And also, by the way, those 2 people that are swooning, one, Will Wheaton, Wesley Crusher from Star Trek: Next Generation, and Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I didn't know that until the credits.
Recognize Will.
I think Will Wheaton would be very upset if he was not included in some way.
You're probably.
By the way, I'm upset that I was not included in some way.
We're all a little.
Especially when I found out that they filmed very close to where we are right now. I mean, we're in the satellite of Buzz up above the Earth, so
Right,
we're
of course.
but like right below us.
But
that's where
relatively,
yeah. I mean, if we could get
in the
down,
universe.
but we can't. We can't get down.
No,
from
we
here.
are stuck here.
We're stuck here watching a show about people watching movies.
Yeah.
So. And Jillian does follow up. I love your show, and I haven't watched the show yet. Spoil away, which I appreciate that. She was wrangling babies, and they're in their 30s, so mic drop. So, see, Jillian, you are the fan of the day because you are chatting so much. I don't know what we have for her. Anything?
Well, certainly a swelling pride.
Oh, yes.
That we can give you just by being genuinely happy that you are alive and in this universe with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Thank
enough.
you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you. You can't frame that, but you can feel it in your heart.
Yeah.
All right.
This is
so
the best frame of all.
the best
All right.
frame of all. And what I noticed in the credits now that I don't know if it's somebody in the Bone crew. I don't even know what those characters were. But Joel Hodgson had a cameo. But it must have been someone that had a mask on because I would have noticed him.
Yeah, I think it must have been the Bone Crew, who I just loved.
Yes.
And I was a fan. I love that they played the music.
I love that there's a house band in the dark side of the moon.
Absolutely.
You know? They've moved the operation to the dark side of the moon.
What kind of 2-bit layer does it you have without a live band?
Well, the old Deep 13 just had sort of, like half like cockroach people and some, Sylvia and Jerry, I believe their names were.
Some upgrades.
It's definitely a lot of upgrades.
Yeah.
And speaking of upgrades, there's a new door sequence for when they go into the theater. And, you can see all that HD in there.
Yeah, it is pretty rad.
Yeah, I'll admit I watched it in slow motion because I was excited.
Wanted to see all the bits and
I just wanted to
pieces moving.
see all of it, and it's like, it moves so cool. And again, when it's in high def, it really stands out because the old episodes, if you watch them now, they're all sort of the little square version, and the pixels are all bad and everything.
They're pixely. You know how pixels go.
As pixels go.
Yeah.
Just ask Adam Sandler. See, no, that wasn't funny. I'm sorry about that.
Oh,
Hey,
Joel's
Scott. Joel's the guy in the hazmat suit. Oh, the guy who delivers the movie down to the theater. Thank you, Scott Sandler.
Thank you, Scott Sandler.
Jillian, still fan of the day. Scott Sandler.
She called dibs.
He's Vice fan of the
Vice
day.
fan.
Yeah, so that's fine, though.
That's great.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you both so much. And anybody who is watching or listening after the fact, pimp out the Twitter one more
Welcome.
time.
I waved to those of you listening.
For everyone listening, that was a wave.
That was a wave. Verbal wave.
His hands are very loud.
Yeah.
At MST3KABTV. I know.
Yes.
So it's a jumble lot of. We could probably do like a word jumble with that. We could
Or
have
a
people
word
spell things out.
jambalaya, which I think sounds
Very
tasty.
tasty. Yeah, it's got a little cayenne pepper in it.
Okay.
In any case, so we get to meet everybody.
Yes.
And before we go into the theater, I jumped the gun by talking about the door sequence. we have an invention exchange, which was a cornerstone of the first few seasons of the show. And during Mike's first season, they still had the invention exchange. Then they kind of did away with the invention exchange.
Okay.
It was kind of it was a Joel thing. Because if you've ever seen, anyone who's watching has ever seen old stand-up that Joel Hodgson did, it was a lot of little gadgets and things like that. So the invention exchange was really in his wheelhouse. So I was excited about the Bubble Fan. And
I thought the Bubble Fan was really cute.
yeah,
and
I was
fun.
just like, well, this is perfect.
Yeah.
My 20-month-old son, Felix, he loves bubbles. So
Yes.
I was like, can I buy that? I don't know if I can.
You might be able to make it.
That's probably true.
Hey.
So I was excited about that. I was excited that, again, the new door sequence.
Oh,
so
yeah.
did you
Very
just
pretty
have all the
sequence.
excitement that I did about all the new stuff?
I was a kid in a candy store in this. I almost didn't take. I almost forgot to take notes because I was just having so much fun.
By the way, did you watch last night after midnight, or did you watch this morning?
I watched this morning because I just couldn't. I couldn't do that to myself because I knew I would want to stay up and watch more.
Yeah.
I almost did, but I parceled it out for myself. I think very smartly.
Yeah, no, I actually watched the first 45 minutes last night, and then I paused it during.
Just
well,
a taste.
partially it was because the internet was acting up, and I'm like, it's 1 a.m. I'm tired. The internet is not cooperating, so I stopped right there, and then it was good, and I was able to pick up with the movie, which we've still not talked about.
Which we're about to,
I really like what they've done is the episode titles are just listed by, episode number or whatever. You don't know what the movies are until you watch it.
Right.
They were very particular about not putting that out there on any of the websites or anything.
Smart.
I think it's good because you get surprised when you find out that the movie is, go ahead, Reptilicus. Because there's nothing better than a monster movie except a Danish monster movie.
Oh my gosh, the Danish make a monster movie, you guys.
A monster movie. And I don't know, I was very excited that, as I said earlier, I was just like, this movie looks amazing. I mean, it's awful, but visually.
Yeah.
Until they got to the special effects.
Oh my gosh. And some of those special effects, and I loved their jokes about it, where they're like, oh, he's like attacking the quality of the film.
Yeah,
or whatever.
right, exactly.
Because it just broke down so intensely.
I know. It's like they're shooting.
Tar.
They're shooting at another movie is basically one of the ones that I liked. And yeah, you just sort of looked. And the footage with Reptilicus in it was like, when was this filmed and how was it?
Bad. Yeah.
And speaking of how bad the Reptilicus effects were, my favorite moment,
Please.
if you have a favorite Reptilicus moment, I'll give you a moment to put it together in your head. Mine is when he attacked the family in the house, which sounds ghoulish, but then he ate the stop motion animation cartoon version of the dad. And I mean, it basically, I don't know. I mean, it looked like, he picked up like Speedy Gonzalez. It was very unrealistic. and then he ate him. And I was like, well, this is my kind of monster movie.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Reptilicus moment?
Gosh, I mean, like, I love that moment. I think you kind of stole what is essentially, I think, maybe the best, like, specific moment of him. But I love just the convention of him having basically one wire on the top of his head that it just dangle bobbles. And they pointed it out at one time. He's a puppet with one string. Like, it's very true. Like, why won't you put such work into like the military uniforms and doing everything else for this movie? It's like, add a couple more strings, man. Like,
Just a couple more strings, yeah. I mean, when he's underwater and they're dropping bombs at him, those are some great moments.
Those shots were really cool. I actually thought.
I thought those looked good. Yeah,
I was like, out of all of the CGI, let's call it, of this movie, no, it's not CGI, but the special effects. I thought that was my favorite. Like, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And I was wondering what kind of like little charges, little cherry bombs or something. What was that? What was doing it?
So now what we have to do is we have to find the original version of Reptilicus. Hope that there's a director's commentary and that they translated it from Danish into English. So, and you'll see that Andrew's writing a note right now. Make sure that he gets the actual DVD. You need the director's commentary.
I'm gonna look on Amazon later.
Yeah. So
Amazon Denmark.
Amazon.dk is probably what that would be.
Right.
Just guessing.
Sure.
There. And I don't know. And we'll sort of go through some of our favorite jokes, and we have a couple things to say in there. But just diving right into the movie, I'm like, this is a movie I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
There would have been something to be said that if it was maybe a monster movie that people were a little bit familiar with. Nope. That's not what the show's about.
Oh, absolutely not.
The show's about,
No preconceived notions.
No.
Only new notions.
Yeah, new notions and notions of just, ways to present garbage on the big screen.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Scott Sandler, who is in the chat on YouTube, was a backer who got the early streaming access to episode 1. So when the whole season landed on Netflix, he started in episode 2.
Oh,
well,
nice.
No spoilers, Scott.
No spoilers, brother.
I can't speak for you. I have not watched episode 2.
I haven't either. I wanted to.
I really wanted to.
Did.
I know. I thought about well, what if I just watch a few minutes? I was like, no.
Respect to the show.
Yeah.
I thought maybe
The integrity of the show.
This show has integrity. No one can say otherwise so far.
So far. Neither of the people in the chat haven't said it, and we haven't said it, so
yet.
I think we're probably in pretty good shape.
We're in the clear.
So throughout the course of the movie, we notice a couple of things that are a little different, some sort of flashier effects there in the studio. I like the fact that Tom Servo can hover. He was always supposed to be able to hover, but we never actually saw it. I mean, he has a hover skirt as part of his design, and he's just flying around.
Yeah.
I like how Gypsy dropped in a couple of times.
That was really cool. And they mentioned that they redesigned Gypsy to be top-oriented instead of bottom-oriented.
Right, and also that she has a voice of a Midwestern woman, which
yeah.
I thought was very charming.
Yeah, there's music in those women's voices.
Maintaining the attachment to places like Hopkins, Minnesota, where the MST3K Info Club used to be, or maybe still is. We don't know. Yeah, but so I liked all those things. I like that they got up in the theater a little bit, which did happen sometimes in the old show, but not very often.
Yeah.
So they're trying to be a little bit more mobile. My favorite moment on there was when Crow broke a bottle during there was a brawl. So he broke like
and then
a wine
Jonah
bottle.
had to break it up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I remember that. I was going to mention the theater itself seemed a lot larger than normal. I was talking to you yesterday about how normally a lot of there are 3 extra chairs to the left, and this time there were 10. There were a lot of extra space.
Yeah, and that way
HD,
yeah, I think it's also a wider aspect ratio because when they did the MST3K the movie, This Island Earth, there were more chairs then too because it was that same aspect ratio for the big screen.
Gotcha.
And as big of a fan as I was, I did not see that in the theater because there were very few theaters that it actually played in. But
we'll have to start a petition.
I mean, I would go see it in the theater. I was gonna say I'd go see it in the theater every day. No, but I would go several times.
Yeah,
but
more than once.
But not 365. No. You got to do other things.
Who could ask that of you?
Well, I don't know if I want to deserve Info Club number 7194.
And I guess then you have to.
Yeah,
you tied your own hands.
And by the way, my brother has number 7193. So he's a little bit more in on the club than I am. But he's not hosting the show. So
well.
Yeah. Julian is very excited that we're talking about Gypsy, I always thought was a great character. I sort of liked the old voice, but she was very hard to understand. And I think we'll get to know her a little bit more. I think that they can do more with her.
Yeah,
now.
they didn't really bring her in as much as they introduced her and then they just kind of let her do a couple little bits and then she kind of was in and
well, because they reminded us that she monitors all the ship's higher functions, and if she gets distracted, everyone's going to die. Well, not everyone's going to die. Just Jonah will die.
Yeah,
I feel like Crow and Servo are going to be fine.
They'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
They could live in the vacuum of space.
Yeah, which that could. Well, that'd still be a show.
There
There would still be a show.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we saw, about the show. And then in terms of, I like that they still came out of the theater. I thought some of the breaks were a little bit weird where it would be like, oh, we're going to have a few seconds of the band and Patton Oswalt, a.k.a. TV Son of TV's Frank, is going to just say a little bit. And I was just like, I don't know why we need that. But I guess maybe one day that these might be on TV and they need to actually take commercials.
Yeah.
I like when they go out and they do the host segments because, it breaks it up a little bit. I always liked that. That was probably...
I was going to say, the breaks, the bits, the songs that they had when they would take the breaks, I was such a fan.
The Reptilicus song was so good that I wish that we'd had a week to prepare because then you and I could have learned the song. And I actually wrote this in my notes, is that we can expect that someone will be performing that song at Comic-Con, not on a stage. No, just
out,
just hanging out,
in the world.
They'll run into somebody and okay, great, and they'll have choreography worked out. That'll be great. No, the song was great. I thought that a lot of the things that they did were fun. I liked that they read some letters from some kids. I thought that was
really
nice.
Cute.
And Crow's idea that if there's a second satellite of love, hopefully it's an evil satellite of love.
Yeah,
which we could see.
That'd keep it spicy.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's sort of like the Mirror Mirror Star Trek version. We should meet the evil versions of everyone.
Absolutely.
I almost feel like they did that once, actually, on the old show.
I hope they have goatees. Did they have goatees on the old show?
Yeah, because I'm visualizing Goatee Servo now. But you see, there were 197 episodes of the old show, and I do believe I've seen them all, but I have not seen many of them in probably the last 15 years.
That's fair.
Every once in a while, I was like, I want to see what's going on. But well,
we got homework to do.
Once we get through these, then we can dive back in. Anyway, so I enjoyed, the host segments. I thought it was fun. I thought there was good interaction with the mad scientists, whatever Felicia Day's name is.
Felicia Day scientist and
the
Oswald scientist.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So was there a moment, and we had talked about this yesterday, we were going to try and isolate, was there a moment that was like a very obscure joke or reference that really struck you as like, that's amazing, that's my kind of humor?
Oh man, so that one. So there was the other one we mentioned too, which we'll get to in a second. That I actually have 2 for.
Okay.
But with the ones that were just jokes for me, like everything, like I thought the whole show, the pace of the show, like the song, the kaiju song.
Yeah.
There's a kaiju in every country. I loved that. I thought that was so on point and on my like brand of humor, and this was great. The Monster Energy drink joke. I don't remember exactly what that is, but I remember it was wonderful.
I remember what it was actually. It's when Reptilicus starts shooting out the energy. It's like, that's where Monster Energy. Yeah, that was actually when I wrote that too, because I loved that. I thought that was great.
That's perfect. I have a lot of when I like things, I just wrote a heart, so I just have a bunch of just like hearts.
Just so many hearts.
Just hearts all over here.
I liked that there was a long run, and it went back and forth, where they talked about Carvel ice cream cakes, particularly Fudgy the Whale. That's like in my wheelhouse as much as I love that. That was a good one. Every time that we saw the outside of one of the buildings, they sang a little Xanadu. That was fairly obscure. Not obscure was a Monster Mash, but when he started singing the Monster, it did make me laugh really hard.
It was very funny. They had a couple Muppets references in there.
Oh, moving right along. That was a favorite.
That's lovely.
And I always like when they do callbacks, because it's like, the car pulls up again. No, there it is. A little bit more moving right along.
It was lovely.
Yeah. And, some of the jokes, it's not necessarily the references. I mean, there's one that I see now in my notes that is the kill screen for Galaga. I played a lot of Galaga as a kid. But there was one that was just like, he's headed for the beach, and they're talking about Reptilicus. He's headed for the beach, and Jonah's like, on a weekday? Must be nice. And just something about that delivery. And it doesn't matter if it's Jonah going forward, or if it was Mike or it was Joel. You need to have that delivery for things. It just strikes you because it's not what you're expecting.
And you're so right. Like, so many of the deliveries, I think, were so on point. Like, it worked so well. They were great jokes. Such great bits.
Good job to everyone all around. All the jokesters involved in the show. And you take a look at the writing staff. You're like, they're full of jokes. So
I wrote down a couple of the names that I recognized, because I know a lot of the names are obviously involved. There's some that are involved over the course of the years.
Yes.
And there's some that are just comedians and contributors and stuff. And I saw Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland were on there.
Yeah.
From Rick and Morty, and Dan Harmon's on a million things. And
yeah.
Baron Vaughn was on there. Like,
right.
A lot of amazing
No,
people.
I liked to see that all the performers are also writers.
Yeah.
They're not hired hands. Yeah. So I thought it was great. And it was it was like 3 screens worth of writers.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, that's what happens.
I had to pause and go back.
That's what happens when you have a Kickstarter. You can hire a few more writers.
Very
All
cool.
right. So now the other thing that we had talked about was to isolate a moment during the course of the show, a joke or a reference that we had to look up. And if we're embarrassed to have had to look it up, that's fine. But just had to look up because you didn't know what it was.
I had 2 of those.
Okay. I only have one, but I'll let you go first.
Okay. My first one was the 5,000 something. It was a song.
There's a movie called Transylvania 65000, but that's also a reference to an old Hollywood Pennsylvania 65000.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I missed both of those.
Okay.
And then the other one, and maybe you know this one, maybe you don't, but Island of Sodor, is that a thing? Island of Sodor? They mentioned that at some point.
I did hear that.
Oh, is that a place I should know about?
I thought I knew what that was, but you looked it up, so I bet I didn't know what it was.
Oh, I should have looked it up.
Oh, but you should have.
I didn't.
Okay, well,
and I'll bring it for next week, because I got to know what the Island of Sodor was.
And if anybody in the chat knows what it was,
if you guys know, then
please
tell
let us know.
Now. Please.
And for me, I had to look up, and this was like not a particularly interesting one, but if I had heard that island, I would have probably been like, oh, I don't know what that is. The St. George and the Dragon, and apparently there was a reference to, like, so we have Reptilicus going by a church, and it's like, who is that, St. George? he's anti-dragon. I'm like, all right, I have no idea. So I look it up, and there's like an old story, St. George and the Dragon. I'm like, all right, I had to look it up. And it's not like a particularly important moment, but with a show like this, I feel like, oh yeah. And it's funny, as it was going along, I was just like, I don't have anything that I have to look up. And then there was that. And I'm sure in future episodes, there's going to be a bunch.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. And then they started doing the singing, and I was like, oh, there's one.
Yeah. Let's see. So Jillian says that she had to open the bay doors for the pizza shuttle. She stepped away for a little bit. I love that kind of inside reference there to the show. In any case,
we should get a pizza shuttle.
We should.
We should.
Well, we'll put that on the to-do list
next time.
Yeah, we'll see if Cambot can help us out with anything. But I don't know. He's busy.
He's Cambotting.
Anyway, so I have so many jokes that I took down that I thought were funny, but I feel like we should talk about other things than like, hey, remember when this joke happened?
I know. I could gush forever. I almost feel like, I wrote down some of them, but I mostly just like, just hearts. I loved this show. Like, I was a little worried, because sometimes those movies can drag on a little bit, and you can get a little exhausted. And you're like, all right, this is a little bit of a marathon, which is why you can appreciate that they take the breaks and stuff. But I didn't feel that way in this movie. I really felt like they were just clipping along.
I did wonder, with it being on Netflix, you're not kind of held to a running time. I mean, obviously, budgetary reasons, you need to keep it to a certain length. But, this episode was 90 minutes. They could do one that's 2 hours and 15 minutes if they want to.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad, for the sake of pacing, that, the movie definitely moved along. Was not a good movie, but it moved along. Yeah. So there's something to be said for that. Although, I could have used more of the guy in overalls grabbing electric eels.
Yeah. That would. Oh, my God, that moment where he just puts his hand in the tank and he reacts to it. Is he actually, is he actually getting electrocuted in that moment?
I think he is, actually. No, I know, because you're just like, wait,
Oscar.
Is this... Yeah, is this character pretending? Yeah, or did this really happen to him?
Is he over there going like, it'd be really funny? Oh, what a moment for me! Like, I have so many questions about that guy.
Yeah, I know. Well, and we didn't really see much of that guy after that point.
We really didn't.
And a lot of the movies that have been featured in this show over the years, they have characters that are sort of very clearly there for comic relief, and usually provide anything but comic relief. And but you know what? I thought this guy was great. Yeah. I mean, I wish this movie weren't so old, because I'd be thinking spin-off.
I mean, starring this guy?
Yeah. Starring overalls guy.
And then he like befriends Reptilicus, maybe? We saw at the end, we're set up for a sequel sometime.
I mean, if they want to move into a 2-bedroom apartment, a loft somewhere, I'm in. I'm in for at least 100 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
I might be out after that, but you got me for 100. Yeah,
and maybe a movie.
Yeah, and Jillian wants us to make ourselves nicknames that match the show. I don't want to put pressure on ourselves now, so we can think about it.
All right, cool.
But that's true.
We
can change our last names like Jonah and Joel did. That's okay. We can do that.
Smart.
And we can be. You could be TVs, Andrew Mena.
Ooh,
you could be.
That's true.
There's a lot of things. AfterBuzz TVs. Oh, see, there we go. This is great. So thank you, Jillian.
You're the best, Jillian.
Yeah, and Scott, you're still good, but Jillian is definitely really holding on to the fan of the day. Show.
It's not a competition, but you are winning.
Yeah, exactly. If it were a competition, you would be winning. So, as the show ends, and we'll go back and talk a little bit more about the movie, one of the things that I kind of liked seeing, everybody says goodbye, and they sort of tease like, oh, we're going to really try and drive this guy crazy with these bad movies. There's kind of a funny joke that Max, a.k.a. TV Son of TV Frank, says, well, we don't have ratings on Netflix, and just the constant bumbling and her lack of tolerance of it. That's the dynamic I needed.
It's a cute and fun dynamic.
Just in general, she's great. I love that she sings. She sings the theme song, and Patton Oswalt doesn't need to sing.
Such a good theme song,
by
the way.
I know, because it's always been a great song, and just they did a little reimagining of it. They picked it up a little bit, and I don't know, it was great. I think that there were some things that I would have been upset if it weren't in the theme song. But we have the la-la-las, and it's the same overall, like, let's explain the show to you.
Exactly.
Which you don't get anymore. Theme songs never explain. Like, the perfect example of the perfect theme song, Gilligan's Island. Yeah. See, we had never talked about that, but everybody knows.
But everybody knows.
The weather started getting rough. Oh, my God.
Look what I sit right back, and we'll tell you the tale.
Great. Yeah. Professor Marianne, I got to know everybody. Great. I'm ready to watch. I've never seen any episodes, but I'm going to watch episode 67 of Gilligan's Island.
So I've heard the theme song.
Yeah, I know everything I know. Yeah. Now, I mean, just imagine if, like, I don't know. Game of Thrones
songs doesn't tell you
Well,
anything.
again, we're gonna say Game of...
we're synced right
That's
up.
why.
Except for that high five.
Except that was a pretty bad
do
high
it better
five.
next
That
time.
would also be on the gag reel. There'd be a slow mo version of it. It's like.
Yeah.
It was basically what it was like.
For those of you listeners,
For your listeners, it was
we're
bad.
sorry.
Yeah, we're very sorry. Yeah, we're very sorry that you're missing all of the visuals.
Yeah.
Like when I was showing everything.
It's really
before.
a feast for the eyes.
Yeah,
That's
true.
Not just our rugged visages. That's a fancy word for faces.
That is a very fancy word.
And probably pronounced wrong.
Yeah. So the credits were much longer than they were for the old show, which is probably, again, a testament to Netflix. And I thought it was great that, there was time to get everybody in there. And I liked that they thanked not all, but they thanked all the letter A Kickstarter backers. At least that's what it looked like.
That's awesome.
At
So
the
they're
end,
probably going to, over the course of the...
Yeah, I guess some of the letters probably won't take as long,
Yeah.
I mean, for the letter
Qs.
X,
X's.
so for Q, it'll probably be Q from Star Trek Next Generation. It's probably just him and Qbert. And then for the X's,
Maybe
it's
James Bond's Q.
Oh, yeah, of course. And Professor X will probably, be the only one there for the X's. So it'll be pretty easy. Weapon X will be there, too.
Some of the sections will be more...
Well, they'll move along a lot quicker.
succinct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but it was great because we got to see the writing staff, and glad to see that Joel Hodgson's still part of the writing staff.
The big part.
Paul Chaplin, that is someone who was involved from the old show. I think the whole run. He was always involved as a writer. I don't know anything about him. I just know I always saw his name there in the credits, so that was great. And loved seeing everybody there. So what I like though is because of the longer credits, we have the love theme from MST3K that plays. But after it's over, we got the Reptilicus rap again. And I was very excited because I was just like, I was already thinking like, I kind of want to go back and listen to the, oh, here it is.
Here it is.
Let me just sit back.
Packaged up.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. So, I don't know. I mean, just the whole thing, everything about it, I was so happy.
Yeah.
And look, obviously, I was predisposed. I was going to like it, even if it was, as long as it was average, I was going to be happy. But I don't know. I thought it was great. I really thought this episode was great.
This show does a great job. Like, it could have been so many things, but it does a great job at number one, taking an existing thing and ripping it to pieces in a way that's really fun, but also kind of like still like it shows you a new thing and like homages it as well as like rips it apart. Like there's love in the ripping apart of it.
Yeah.
It's great. And they also make new things. All of those songs were not like songs that they, you know what I mean? Like those are their songs. They made up the new material. So there's so much to this show. Like they're working
and
hard.
I mean, it's very clearly, sure, it's the same show, but it's so different. It's from a modern sensibility, but also, there's so
modern attention span. I noticed because the pace, especially
the pace
with
is a lot faster.
Yeah,
that's a great point. I actually hadn't thought about that, and yeah, I think that we'll probably see if the movies probably move along faster than they did in the old show. Because there were some of those movies where there's an episode called Lost Continent where they spend the majority of the movie rock climbing, and it was a reference throughout that episode. And whenever later episodes, when something was really boring, they would just reference rock climbing. And in my personal life, sometimes I'll still be like, oh, this is a real rock climbing moment. And if we ever have a rock climbing moment on this show, please let us know.
You guys let us know about our rock climbing moments.
Yes, please do. So anyway, I again, just very happy. That's the key to it. And again, I really would have wanted to watch more, but I just felt like I knew we were only going to talk about one. So I know you have some other notes, and I kind of, now that we got through all the important stuff, I'm going to just pick a few things that I didn't mention that just made me laugh really hard, which I think is good. There's a point where it looks like Reptilicus is going to throw up, and they call him Bulimicus.
Yep.
And I'm like, great. The doctor that we saw with his crazy bow tie, they called him Dr. Pee Wee Kissinger.
It was perfect.
And I'm just like, yes, that's the perfect joke for that moment. And, that skill set is really only applicable to this show.
Yeah.
Because what we talked about was that, sure, there's all these things that are different, but ultimately it's still a guy and two robots in a movie theater watching a bad movie, and you have to make that entertaining. And
they do it really great.
They did really great, and that was good. So I don't know if you have any that are there.
I
in your
have
notes.
3 left that we haven't already mentioned. I loved when they mentioned there's so many extras. This movie has so many extras.
They really did.
They really did. Yeah. They're all so well dressed and
they were very well dressed.
And I loved that they were like, oh, and they don't really have the panic of like a Japanese sort of like. It's like they're too polite to scream.
That was one of the things I liked. That the first few times we saw them running, it was always a reference to Hard Day's Night, how the Beatles were running.
Yeah, they did do that. That was really cute. The other ones that I liked was SAS Airline, which is just really
I
good.
wrote that SAS Airline.
SAS Airline, and what was the slogan he gives it? He's like, where the
in-flight movie is we don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
and the way he
exactly.
said it was perfect. And the last one was just like a Wicker Man reference. He
Yeah.
made a
Oh
Wicker
yeah,
Man
there was a
reference up
great
top.
Wicker Man reference.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And some of them they're not references. They're just they
Mentions,
specifically are informed by the weird moment on the screen. Like one of the female characters very suddenly darts across the screen, focused on something else, and I actually don't know if it was Jonah or if it was Tom or Crow. But the joke was omelet bar, and it was just so
Where's
it's
she
so
going?
dumb.
That's where she's going.
But that's what I really like. Anyway,
too.
so everybody let us know what your favorite moments were
Yes.
from the first episode.
Tweet at us.
Reptilicus.
Let
yes.
us know.
Tweet us at MST3KABTV.
You know what the island of Sodor is?
Yeah.
Then let us know. I'm gonna try to find out anyway.
I feel like we can find out.
We're gonna
between
find
now.
out.
Yeah.
But if they know, then they can feel the joy of being the one to tell us.
Exactly. So for everybody who's watching on YouTube, we appreciate that. Anybody who joined us here live, we will be back next Friday. We'll talk about episode 1102. Title of which, don't know.
Question marks.
Haven't watched yet because we didn't cheat. I
Yeah.
should have.
We're not cheaters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, but although Scott in the chat has already watched it, so he could tell us.
Yeah, he
Don't ruin it for us. No
Please,
spoilers,
Scott,
Scott.
please.
We're trapped up
We're
here
at your
in the
mercy.
satellite of Buzz. There's not
Yeah.
much we can do beyond that.
We have no control.
We have no control. So, but we will be back at noon Pacific time,
Noon Pacific.
3 Eastern.
3 Eastern.
Today it
3
was
Eastern.
3 Pacific,
Yeah.
6 Eastern.
Wow.
So confusing.
That's late for those Eastern people.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? It's Good Friday.
Oh,
you know?
that's fair.
So people are probably they got home
It
early.
is a pretty good Friday.
There were magically a bunch of new episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah. I've had worse Fridays.
There are much worse. It's an old joke, but I'm going to say it. This was a great Friday.
Hey,
this wasn't just a good
you're
Friday.
not wrong.
Yeah. A little bit better. We're good. Better.
That was a bit of
Still
medium
not great,
level.
but
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
good.
We're getting there.
First show, we're going to work on the high
Progress.
fives. So that's when we'll be back. But
Great.
if you're just listening on iTunes, please subscribe.
Yeah, leave us a like. Give us a rate.
Oh, those ratings.
Yeah.
Because, there are probably going to be a bunch of podcasts about Mystery Science Theater 3000. So if you take the
Sure.
time to comment and rate us, we get a little bumped up.
Yeah,
And then-
we'll go higher, and it's more likely
we'll
that
get-
your friends will find us. And
Yeah.
all that.
We want your friends to find us. And if you like the show, you can retweet, you can post the links on Facebook. All these good things, they'll help the show.
They would help.
We want people to know,
Yeah.
we want to have new friends.
Yeah.
But we love having Jillian and Scott in the chat.
Thanks, Jillian.
We
Scott.
don't need more than them, but we would like to have some more. Just have a, there's plenty of seats at the table. that we
Variety
can take.
spice of life. I think something like that.
Variety is the spice of something.
Yeah, it's a spice variety.
Yeah, exactly.
Delicious variety.
Delicious variety. In any case, that'll basically wrap it up for this installment.
Yeah.
So, again, follow us at MST3KABTV. And Andrew Mena is at Andrew Mena, and that's MENA. I don't know if I did that before.
Like men with an A
because
at the
I
end.
looked for you. I looked for you with 2 N's, and I did
No,
not find you because
that's
that's
too
not
many
you.
N's,
That's not
sir.
you. I'm Christian DMZ at Christian DMZ.
Nice.
And you can find me there. So, with nothing else to do, I guess I have to say, push the button, Andrew.
All right. Well, bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.